All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Kelly Cawthorn's webinar. I'm Melissa McKinley, and I am pleased to welcome you to an important conversation on regulatory reform and Michigan's efforts to cut red tape, modernize licensing, and streamline permitting, work that directly impacts our state's workforce, businesses, and communities. It's our privilege, my privilege, to be joined today by State Representative Bill G. Schuette, who serves as the chair of the House Rules Committee. Representative Schuette has been leading the charge on the committee's Red Tape Reduction Initiative, a bold and comprehensive effort to make Michigan a more competitive and responsive place to live, work, and grow a business. Today, he'll walk us through the initiative, share key proposals, and take questions on how the legislature plans to reshape Michigan's regulatory landscape. With that, please join me in welcoming Representative Bill Schuette. Hi, Representative Schuette. It's nice to see you.
Hey, Melissa, thanks for having me on the webinar and always appreciate your great informational sessions you pull together.
Thanks. Well, we're really excited about this today. I know a number of our clients have been really interested in this subject and wanting to get more details about the work that you're doing. So if you don't mind, we're going to jump right in.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So Representative Schuette, can you give us just a brief overview of what prompted the Red Tape Reduction Initiative and why the Rules Committee prioritized this now?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, first off, my team reminded me that the last Kelly Cawthorn webinar I was on was I think also in the summertime last year, ahead of the election, and it was on what to expect, and it's kind of a fun pivot now to look to where we are right now in Lansing, where we have divided government, right, and we're 7 months into the new legislature, and we've only had six bills actually become law. So I think from the jump, as House Rules Committee chair, looking at divided government, you need a governor to sign any legislation. You need a Democrat-controlled Senate to also pass legislation. What are some concrete, tangible things we can work together across Lansing to really impact the quality of life for Michigan's workforce, make it easier to start a business here, raise a family here? And when I heard the governor in her seventh state of the state talk about the need to streamline our government, cut red tape, and reform our permitting and licensing processes, I said, gee, that's something I can get behind. Maybe we have a great opportunity here. And I was fortunate that Speaker Matt Hall, as made my position as rules chair, said, Bill, I want you to lead this initiative for our caucus. I want you to advance what it looks like to do regulatory reform in the state of Michigan. And so we, got to work, got input from stakeholders, and including clients of Kelly Cawthorn's, but also talking to small business owners, people from across our different peninsulas and different districts across the state of Michigan to produce what I think is a really concrete, tangible report that can get some results.
So you mentioned Governor Whitmer acknowledging this. What do you see as common ground with the governor on this initiative?
Yeah, so the governor's office of licensing and regulatory affairs, they published their own report on the licensing and regulation in the state of Michigan, and we took that report. I reviewed it with my team and with our House Republican team, and I'll say, we took probably 75% of that report and agreed with it. Now we obviously expanded, include a lot of additional information and other policies in that, but I tell you what, in Lansing right now, if 75% is a pretty good batting average. I mean, that's better
That's
than the
big.
Hall of Fame. It's a good record. So the fact that we definitely have a lot of aspects where we can agree with the governor's own department, I would hope that means those are some areas where we can really get the ball rolling and moving.
Yeah, I would say that's huge. 75% of anything is,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
passing
yeah,
grade. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. Of that report, can you talk about one or two of the most impactful changes you're supporting and why?
Yeah, so I think you have to look at this, kind of both the way the state of Michigan does licensing, regulation, and permitting, kind of there's some things that have broad universal impact that touch all sectors, and then there's other things that are very specific to a certain sector or certain profession. And then what we've seen is it sort of almost created barriers to entry to getting into those new professions and getting into those areas that makes it harder to attract people to live here, encourage people to go into fields that we need to. And so when you look at broader aspects, I think of allowing people to complete their continuing education requirements in one block versus mandating you have to split it up. I mean, we live in a busy world. People have busy times. You want to allow people to just be able to knock out their continuing education requirements when they're able to block out a time instead of the government saying, well, actually, you have to do it 1 hour here and then 1 hour there. I think that's something that people across industries will appreciate. But I think this will be really impactful and helpful in the skilled trades and in the healthcare landscape, where we know that we have a shortage of healthcare professionals. We know we have a shortage in the skilled trades. So making sure that we're not having types of licensing requirements and testing requirements and duplicative procedures, policies, and testing that is way out of step with other states, especially in our region. I think that's going to be a really impactful way we can help.
Yeah, we have a number of clients that we work with, as you know, that do have licensing requirements and some that are interested in getting licensed as well. An important aspect of that is, probably having to make decisions based on the health, safety, and welfare of the public and what is really truly impacting the health, safety, and welfare and what isn't. And when you look at that, your initiative recommends eliminating some of those licensing requirements. What criteria is your committee using to decide which licenses to target to repeal?
Yeah, so I'd say, a couple of them, just are kind of in common sense. It's like, why do we have a license to be a plant grader or a butter grader or a plant grower? I think grade A, grade B butter. I don't think that's a determination the state of Michigan should say. Maybe there's an industry that can do a better job of doing that. And I think when there's no other states that have a license to be a plant grower, it kind of makes you wonder why we have it here in the state of Michigan. So I think those are kind of criteria. There's the good old common sense test, which Melissa, you and I both know is not common in state government, but common sense obviously is a factor. But I think more holistically, you take a look at other 50 states. And then you look at states in our region, and then you look at states that are growing, that are attracting people to move there, that have economies that are innovative and thriving. And we say, okay, where is Michigan in relation to those states? And the good news for us is that there was a lot of case studies and examples for us to work with. The bad news is we have a lot of work to do. So I think that was kind of the criteria we looked at, and that's why I think we're able to produce a report that would have some real tangible positive impact.
So another area for us, we do a lot of work, and as you just met one of our great clients, My Michigan Health,
Love those guys.
yeah, we do too. The initiative calls for more flexibility in mental health licensing and supervision, as we all know that we have a mental health crisis in this state, and we're working hard to try and eliminate that crisis. How do the changes help address Michigan's behavioral health workforce shortages that you're proposing?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think, healthcare is one of the key areas where we're going to hopefully be able to cut red tape. And you want to have well-trained professionals that know how to do the job. What you don't want to have is, again, requirements that don't have a value add and aren't increasing the safety standards, but rather limiting access. And I think that was an area where we especially were seeing, we have a huge mental health crisis in our country that we need to get, serious about solving and serious on working at, but we're making it so difficult to be a licensed worker in that field that it's just making their shortage of workers in that field even greater, and it's just doubling down on this problem. So that's an aspect that I think having more qualified, well-trained professionals have that access into the field, making it easier for people to move between qualified healthcare fields. I think that's super important, and that's going to be a really impactful way to help provide increased access to care, which can lower costs and then also hopefully provide some real serious positive treatment.
So another area that's been kind of important and we've talked a lot about is reciprocity with our other states. How do you see that working in practice, and what benefits do you think it offers for our Michigan's workers and the economy?
Yeah, so that's another one where we kind of looked around at, what are some other states that are growing? What are some other states, that are booming? And one of those is Arizona. I mean, you looked at the last round of redistricting. Arizona is a state that was adding, figuring out how do we add more congressional seats in, while Michigan's saying, well, how do we get rid of congressional seats because our population is declining. And Arizona tried this process of universal licensing, reciprocity, where they accept other licenses from other states to help encourage people to move out to Arizona, plant their flag, and start their family there. And it's been working out really well for them. Now, in Michigan, we're looking at how do we implement this and how do we, produce this. And the governor, again, this is an area the governor talking about population growth, something she really wants. I think it's an important public policy issue for us to solve. If we have more people living in the state of Michigan, our income tax, we're getting collecting more income tax because more people live here. Our schools have more kids in their schools, so they're getting more money per pupil. I mean, these are all really problem we have to solve in our states easier for populations growing. So where I think licensing reciprocity can help there is and how we tweaked it from Arizona and Michigan is we said, if you want to move here, if you want to establish your residence here, if you want to, be paying your income tax here, sending your kids to school here, we should accept your license from another state. And I think that makes it, so easy. So that way, if people are considering, gee, am I going to move from Indiana to Michigan? Am I going to take my family to this new opportunity where my wife is considering a job between a job in Montana or Michigan? The Michigan opportunity, I know that I can also continue my career field there. I don't have to, wait, 9, 10, 12 months to get a license. That's gonna help a lot. And that's gonna be just another way we can help encourage people to move here and live in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, we welcome everyone to come live in the great state of Michigan because it's a
Yeah.
great place to work, live, and play.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go.
so I think this next one we've heard a ton about from our engineering clients, our developers. You've proposed a one-stop shop for permitting. How would that work across agencies, and what industries do you think stand to benefit the most from this?
And this is an area too where you look at other states and you see that Michigan's just we're not doing it worse than other states. We're having our lunch take our lunch money taken by states like Indiana and Ohio because they have one stop shops for permitting. And if you're deciding where do I do a business, do I do a business in the state where it takes me 30 days to get a permit, or it takes me 60, 90, 120 days to do a permit? I mean, we're making it cost prohibitive to open up a business in our state, but it also drives up costs in some of our key sectors right now in our state. I mean, one of those is healthcare, but another one of those is childcare. The every community I go to in my district, when you're traveling around meeting with different industry experts, they all talk about, well, we're trying to attract people here, but providing quality childcare is really challenging. Well, if you're a childcare provider in the state of Michigan, you have to report to 6 different state agencies. I mean, that's ridiculous. And that doesn't include the different local reporting requirements that you have, federal agencies that you have to report and get certified with. So, especially when a lot of these places closed during COVID, to then have them, try and reopen with this incredibly difficult permitting aspect, childcare is going to be a huge industry that benefits. Another one is housing. I mean, in my area, the Great Lakes Bay area, we're at like 92% occupancy in housing, and you look across our state, it's a huge issue as well from an affordability aspect. And what we haven't been doing a good enough job about is saying, why does it cost so much to build a home in the state of Michigan? And a lot of the times is because you have to get a permit from Lara, and you have to get a code from Bureau of Fire Services, and you have to get talk to Eagle and Myosha, and then you have so many different overlapping requirements. And sometimes what one agency tells you disagrees with what another agency tells you. And that drives up costs, that creates confusion, that pushes back timelines, which again drives up costs. And so I think, housing infrastructure development, those are going to be really serious areas where this would provide a big cost savings.
Well, and it connects the dots. I mean, as a legislature, you have been investing a lot in housing, and
Yeah,
yet it's a slow process. So if
yeah.
you can expedite the use of those dollars, it's only going to make it better too. So
Mhm.
absolutely. But how do you take what you just talked about of expediting, making things faster, but also balancing that and reducing red tape with ensuring public health, safety, and environmental protections, they still remain strong?
Absolutely. And again, that's going to be front of mind. And you want to responsibly regulate. But you want to educate before you regulate, right? You want to make sure that people know what the rules are to follow and how to comply. And Michigan's gone way beyond responsible regulation. It's gone way beyond sensible protections. And, we have the Great Lakes in the state of Michigan. We have so many environmental treasures that protecting those and making sure that those are always going to be a treasure that future generations can enjoy, that will always be a priority. But we're 6 steps past that. We're at a state where we're licensing butter graders and we have 6 different agencies trying to do the same thing. What we need to have is a set of rules that make sure we do the basics, and we're protecting those essential elements, and we're having clean drinking water and clean green Great Lakes, and protecting our environment, but making sure that we have a very easy to comply with, understandable code, instead of what we have right now, which is 10 feet high stack of code that nobody really knows that they're in compliance with.
Well, that's going to go into my next question, but with everyone's favorite department, Eagle.
Oh yeah.
Um, so, what reforms are being considered to reduce the delays and inconsistencies that you've been kind of talking about in Eagle's permitting process, especially around the wetlands?
hmm Lots of things we need to do with wetlands, because basically, if Eagle wants to right now, the entire southern half of the Lower Peninsula, they could just say is a wetland, and we've seen that happen a lot. And then again, that limits our scope and ability to build. The wetland bank system needs a complete overhaul, which is part of what we do here as well, to make it easier to responsibly develop in these areas, make sure that we're preserving our wetlands, but also allowing for an opportunity for us to do things like build housing, childcare centers that we need to live, work, and play. And then also, what we've heard from a lot of people is you apply for an initial permit, you get your permit approved, and then you comes back with a whole scope of revisions that is beyond the initial scale of what you first applied for. And that's like moving the goalposts. That's Lucy pulling out the football, and that's not fair to you know uh, a family that's depending on the jobs that are going to be created by a project. That's not fair to the people who are trying to invest and make Michigan a place where they're planting their flag. So those are some serious ways we can do it. And then we also see, Melissa, that what takes you 30 days in Indiana to do takes you 90 days in Michigan to do. And then you get to that 90-day mark in Michigan and they say, oh yeah, and we need like 10 other things. And I think we need to let's put the onus on the department and say, if you don't give us because you submit your thing into the portal, and then you just hear nothing. It's like you're going dark. You're in the twilight zone, and then you find out that you have all this stuff to do on day number 90. I think we need to move to a shall issue, where if you're not getting back to us, you're not reporting, you get the permit. I think that would really put the accountability back where it belongs.
Yeah, we've also heard it's inconsistency within the department of maybe you start with one person that tells you one
Yeah,
thing
no,
and
if you
then you
get a
go to
good
the
person,
next
great.
person that
Yeah,
tells you
but
something
they're on
different the
vacation,
next
you're
time.
screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you make a lot of people happy if you can get to that place represented for sure.
hmm
Another interesting part in what you're attempting to do, the report mentions that you would allow for the right for individuals and businesses to sue the state over those delayed or denied permits. Why did you feel, or why does the committee feel that this private right of action was necessary?
And this isn't something we take lightly because I understand, private right of action is a significant shift. But that's again because Michigan's way across the Rubicon here. We've really gone way too far in terms of the way that we do permitting, and we're denying permits, and that's providing a significant cost. And if you're a private developer or you're a private citizen, and you're not receiving fair treatment from your state government, and that is you have documentation that it is causing significant financial harm. You should have a way to, at the very least, recoup the costs that you've had to go and get through the process of receiving that permit. So again, I think that we're at a point where we really need to make sure that our government is working for Michiganders, and that our bureaucracy is accountable to Michiganders, and that's the people they're trying to serve. It doesn't feel like that for a lot of Michiganders out there right now, and I think this would be a step to helping restore that accountability.
Do you think that could open the floodgates to a lot of unnecessary litigation and costs for the state?
Again, I think that what I'm most concerned about right now is making sure that we're holding our executive branch accountable. And obviously, their implementation would need to be done the right way. I'm sure there are, Michigan Association of Justice is a nice client of Kelly Cawthorn's, and I don't agree with them on everything, but I'm sure this would be an area where we do agree. It's important to have some accountability brought back to state government.
Right. Well, what kind of feedback have you gotten from small business owners or sole proprietors or stakeholders, really from all walks, about this initiative thus far? And any stories or examples that
Yeah.
you can share with us?
It's been great. I shared it with my local small business association members, and the most rewarding thing that I hear in that is like, oh yeah, like if these six or seven things had been fixed for me, that would have saved me all this money, and that shows you that it's really true, and it's real stories. And there is a child care provider here in Midland County, that one of the direct changes would allow them to serve 60 more kids. That's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot, and that can really help some families. And it's in a low cost environment, very high quality facility. I mean, those are the types of real, tangible, life-changing impacts that would help. I would say, Melissa, what's been the most refreshing thing is I was expecting a little bit more pushback of people being like, hey, I got mine. I want these people to have to jump through those six or seven hoops that I had to jump through. It's been very encouraging to hear people say no. In fact, yes. I had to go through all this, but I think it's not right. And if we want to encourage people to live here, build here, grow here, we need to fix it.
So as you go through this process of change, which, change is always hard, for
Hmm.
sure. But what would you say to the critics who might argue that reducing some of these regulations could really lower standards or oversight in crucial sectors like healthcare or construction?
Hmm. Again, I would say look at the other states that are uh, have implemented a lot of the types of reforms that we're modeling. Those are not states where you're seeing huge crisis of standards. And in fact, the opposite. You're seeing, if anything, more innovation. And with that innovation brings increased performance, higher quality along with that. And you've also seen their economies growing. And again, that growth winning just leads to more winning. And then they're getting more innovation, more production, more increases in performance. So I'd say you haven't seen that in some of our other states. And you know Michigan is has a lot of work to do. And if we keep wringing our hands, we're going to be managing our decline instead of building a productive future.
So I have a few more questions for you, Representative, but I want to make sure to be able to offer to those who are participating today that if you have any questions, just please put them in the Q&A and we'll get to those questions here shortly. So please feel free to make sure you type those out and we will get to ask those of Representative Schutte. So just getting back to a couple more questions. One is, how do you plan to track the impact of these reforms once implemented? And do you expect there to be metrics or a formal review process of any sort?
Yeah, so what we have asked is the departments to do their own reviews with in addition to the implementation of reforms that we do. So, and again, like there's a lot of reports that are issued in Lansing, but I think this is a particularly introspective one that I think will give us some real clear action items, and it goes directly to the legislature. I would say this was kind of helped us get the ball rolling on this initial rules report, was one of these initiatives from Laura. So I think that would be helpful and effective, and I think too, um, we developed a lot of really good relationships with different industry groups, trade groups, and working with our state agencies to report on the numbers. And some of this will be evident from more people who are moving here, from more people that are going to our public schools, for more people paying the gas tax to help fix our roads. Those are all going to be really, I think, impactful ways we see this happen.
Well, and you mentioned it, there are a lot of reports that are asked of these state agencies every year, from the legislature. So the report requires a red tape reduction plan every legislative session. How do you ensure that those agencies really take it seriously and not just treat it as just another paperwork and exercise, and whether they submit it or don't submit it? Because I do think that this information is going to be really important to make sure that you're
hmm
refining these process, and that we're doing right by these companies and the citizens of the state.
Yeah. And I think that goes into the broader shift of the bureaucratic culture that we're trying to lead here right now in the legislature. Is making sure that the legislature is a co-equal branch of government, is working to hold our executive branch accountable, and we're hoping to work productively with them. We're hoping to work proactively towards forging a better future for Michigan families, and hopefully these reports will be a process of doing that. But we have, I think, through this system, set up some area of oversight and accountability. We have a very robust oversight arm of our state house right now. They can ask questions if we don't feel like the law is being followed in certain cases. And my hope would be they see the impact. And again, 75% of Laura's recommendations we're taking. We'd hope they would view that as a signal of good faith too, that this can be a way where we can work together.
Well, if this initiative is as successful as we believe it will be, what do you think Michigan is going to look like in 2 to 3 years from now in terms of business growth and workforce development?
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's going to be a state where it's, easier to move to. It's a state where it's easier to start a business, where you have decreased costs in childcare, healthcare, housing. I think those are all three key areas where we'd all love to see costs go down. And I'd hope you see our population growing. And I think those would all be areas where we should look to assess how impactful we're being in these areas. And then I would say industries like the skilled trades and healthcare, you're seeing more people able to move into those fields.
Yeah. Well, what's next for the Rules Committee, Representative?
Yeah, that's great. So we just a little bit of inside baseball for the webinar crew here, which I know is an inside baseball crew. We issued this report. Then the next step is we have all these different recommendations. We've overwhelmed the Legislative Service Bureau with all of the hundreds of bill requests that have come in. Thankfully, this is one of Speaker Hall's priority, and he gets to tell LSB what to prioritize. So they are in the process of generating the hundreds of bills. We're getting them coming in now. And then, my job as rules chair will be to work with our rules committee members and different policy chairs and committee members in assigning, some of these bills out, talking to members of my caucus and somebody who's really passionate about getting people into the skilled trades, or really passionate about changing the way we do continuing education online. Those types of discussions going to have with our caucus, and reaching across the aisle and saying to some of my Democrat friends, where can we work together? What are some of these policies that you'd like to work on? That's going to be the next process, is enrolling these bills. There's like hundreds of bills in this package, Melissa. And then, we'll run this through the process. We'll have committee hearings on them as well, give people a chance to speak up, and hopefully move it to the governor's desk.
hundreds of bills in one package. That might be the biggest bill package I've ever heard of for
Yeah,
one
yeah, we may we
initiative.
may we may
So,
need to split it up into a couple of them, but yeah, it's a
yeah,
big bill package.
yeah. Well, that'll be history making in itself. Well, do you see once you get this done? I mean, and hundreds of bills will take some time, but after you accomplish that, do you see any other areas of government ripe for reform beyond licensing and permitting?
I think those are, two huge areas. I'd like to, continue to think about ways where we can make Michigan a more affordable state, where we can make Michigan a state where it's easier to do business and make sure we have a bureaucratic culture that is, more productive working for Michigan, not Michigan working for the government. So I think what we'll see is whether it's in the energy sector, which is a key driver of costs, that there's ways where we can encourage more investment in our state, whether it's our manufacturing sector, that's just been sort of a bedrock of Michigan's economy. What are ways where we can grow and build there to make Michigan a better state to invest in?
Well, I will just say, we just had one question pop up. How can we prevent the reply that the departments will need lots of new FTEs to implement these improvements from the bill package? That's a great
Yeah,
question.
no, no, that is a great question, and that's kind of been like the initial song and dance. And I had this discussion with some of our friends in the executive branch earlier. They're like, "Oh, we're going to need a bunch of new FTEs to answer this or to meet these needs." And I said, "Well, then what about these 15 FTEs that your department has unfilled in your budget right now?" And I think we're in the midst, as I'm sure your clients are aware, of a very strenuous budget negotiations process. And I think part of that is we're going to be asking the departments to use some of their allotted unfilled FTEs, and instead of asking us for more, giving them the flexibility to move things around within their departments to meet the needs. But there isn't a state agency that is completely maxed on their FTEs right now. They're all having a lot of unfilled areas. So it'll be on us to see if there's ways for them to encourage them to fill those. So that's a great question.
It is a good question. There are always needs for FTEs you hear. Any other questions for Representative Shooty? This has been a really, really great webinar with so much information and very thoughtful questions, answers to those questions. So thank you, Representative Shooty. I know this was very helpful to me to better understand the work that you've been doing, and we're really excited to work with you as you continue to move through this process. I think it's going to be great for the state. As we said, you are doing a lot to cut red tape and modernize licensing and streamline permitting in the state of Michigan, and we're excited to work together with you to fulfill that. So I don't see any other questions from our group today. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it as always. You're a great Kelly Cawthorn webinar guest, and we really just appreciate your time and work. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Can't wait for the next one. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
See you guys. Bye bye.